She swore that no younger sister would marry before her. And on her sister's wedding morning, she poured cold water over her body, destroying the day completely. A long time ago, there was a family with 3 daughters. Their names were Ada, Ngozi, and Amaka. When they were small, they were very close. They played together, ate together, and even slept side by side on the same mat. If one of them cried, the other 2 would cry as well. If one laughed, the others joined her. Their mother used to say, "These girls are like 3 fingers from one hand." They went to the stream together every morning. Ada, being the eldest, carried the biggest pot of water. Ngozi, the middle one, carried firewood. And Amaka, the youngest, would just skip along beside them, singing songs and chasing butterflies. In the evenings, after their father returned from the farm, the sisters would sit by him while he roasted yam. They shared everything equally. Ada would cut the yam, Ngozi would add palm oil, and Amaka would clap her hands happily as they ate. At night, when thunder struck, Amaka always ran to her sisters and whispered, "I am safe when I am with you." That was how strong their bond was. Life was simple, but it was sweet. The whole village admired them and said, "These girls will surely grow to bring joy to their parents." But childhood does not last forever. The sisters grew quickly. Before long, they were no longer small girls chasing butterflies. They were young maidens, tall and graceful, helping their parents with the work of the house and the farm. On market days, they followed their mother to sell vegetables. Ada arranged the baskets neatly, Ngozi called to buyers with her calm voice, and Amaka smiled at everyone until people bought things just because of her cheerfulness. The 3 of them made their mother proud. During farming season, they worked side by side with their father. Ada held the hoe firmly, Ngozi carried the basket of seedlings, and Amaka sang songs to keep their spirits high. The neighbors would pass by and shake their heads in wonder, saying, "These girls are truly a blessing." At night, they sat outside under the moon. They told each other stories, shared secrets, and even planned what their future would look like. Ada said she wanted to marry a strong man who could provide for the family. Ngozi said she wanted peace in her home, whether rich or poor. Amaka only laughed and said, "I just want to marry someone who will love me the way I love you both." The bond was still strong, even as they became women. But little by little, Ada began to notice something that unsettled her heart. When they went to fetch water, people stared longer at Ngozi and Amaka. When young men passed by, their eyes followed the younger sisters more than her. And though nobody spoke it aloud, Ada could feel it. Her beauty was no longer the one that caught the first attention. She did not say anything at first. She still laughed with her sisters, still played with them. It was the beginning of a feeling that would one day tear their love apart. As the girls grew into full womanhood, suitors began to notice them. It was not surprising. 3 daughters, each beautiful in her own way, living under one roof. The news spread quickly from one village to another. The first suitor came one quiet evening. He was a young farmer from a nearby village. He entered their compound with his family, carrying palm wine and coconuts. His eyes kept resting on Ngozi, the middle sister. Their parents welcomed him warmly. The man's family spoke clearly. They had seen Ngozi at the market, and they wanted her hand in marriage. At that moment, Ada's heart shook. She sat quietly, but her heart burned with fire. "How can Ngozi marry before me?" she thought. "I am the first daughter. No younger one should go before me." When the families agreed to discuss further, Ada stepped forward. With a calm face, she looked at the suitor and said, "Brother, I don't think you know my sister well. She looks gentle, but she is not as obedient as you think. She may not respect you in marriage." The words dropped like stones. Ngozi's face went pale. Their parents were shocked, but they could not say anything in front of the visitors. The young farmer looked confused. He glanced at Ngozi again, then at Ada, and slowly his smile disappeared. The suitor and his family stood up and left. They never returned. Ngozi went into the hut and cried. Amaka sat by her, holding her hand. She whispered, "Sister, don't cry. Maybe another man will come." But in her heart, Amaka knew the truth. It was not the suitor that was the problem. It was Ada. And that was only the beginning. Not long after the first suitor left, another one came. This time it was for Amaka, the youngest. He was a hunter from a nearby town, strong and respected. People said he could bring down an antelope with just one arrow. When he came with his people, carrying meat and gourds of palm wine, Amaka's heart leapt. She had always admired him from afar. The family gathered, ready to listen. But before the hunter's family could even settle down, Ada began to speak. She looked straight at the young man and said, "Hunter, you are strong, yes. But can you provide for a wife? Do you know how hard it is to keep a family? If you marry Amaka now, she will suffer. She is too delicate for hardship." Her voice was calm, but her words were sharp. The hunter frowned. His people shifted uncomfortably. They had not expected such resistance. Amaka sat quietly, her eyes filling with tears. She wanted to speak, but fear held her tongue. She could not go against her elder sister in front of everyone. When the visitors left, silence covered the compound. That night, Amaka cried until her pillow was wet. Ngozi sat beside her, holding her shoulders. "Why is Ada doing this to us?" Amaka whispered. Ngozi shook her head. "She wants to marry first. She will not allow anyone else to go before her." The truth was painful, but it was clear. Ada had become like a locked door, standing in the middle of their lives. No matter how many suitors came, none could pass through. The villagers started to gossip. At the stream, at the market, even under the mango trees, people whispered, "Something is wrong in that family. Why are suitors running away? It is not ordinary." But inside the house, the pain was worse. The days turned into months, and the months into years. Yet, none of the sisters had found a husband. Ngozi and Amaka were still admired by young men, but every time someone showed interest, Ada would find a way to drive him away. Sometimes she used harsh words. Other times she spread small lies. And sometimes she simply stood at the entrance of the compound with a face so hard that no man dared to speak his mind. The village people began to notice. Women at the stream shook their heads and whispered, "Those girls should have married long ago. How can the younger ones remain at home while the eldest is still there? It is Ada that is holding them down." At the market, men laughed quietly among themselves. "Forget about Ngozi and Amaka," they said. "Their sister will never allow them to marry. Even if you love them, you will only waste your time." The gossip spread like fire. Soon people stopped coming to the compound at all. No colonnuts, no palm wine, no discussions of marriage. Ngozi began to lose weight. She no longer laughed like before. At night she prayed silently, asking God to open a way for her. Amaka, still young, tried to be hopeful. But sometimes she sat outside, staring at the moon with tears in her eyes, wondering if she would ever wear the beads of a bride. Ada pretended not to notice their pain. She cooked, worked in the farm, and behaved as if nothing was wrong. But in her heart, she knew the truth. She had shut the door of marriage for her sisters. And she was ready to keep it shut until she herself was chosen first. One morning, after many months, hope returned to the family. A young trader from a nearby town came into the village. His name was Obinna. He was hard-working, respectful, and had enough wealth to care for a wife. Obinna's eyes fell on Ngozi. He saw her at the market selling vegetables. She did not shout like other sellers. She spoke gently with a smile. He was drawn to her kindness. Not long after, Obinna and his people came to the family compound. They brought palm wine, dried fish, and fine wrappers. Everyone knew what it meant. The younger sisters were filled with excitement. Even their parents felt some relief, for they had worried that their daughters would remain unmarried forever. When the family sat down, Obinna's people spoke clearly. "We have come because our son has seen Ngozi. He has seen her character, her beauty, her hard work. He wishes to take her as his wife." Ngozi's heart beat fast. She lowered her eyes, but inside she was full of joy. Amaka squeezed her hand under the mat, whispering, "At last, sister, your time has come." But Ada was listening, and in her chest, jealousy boiled like hot oil. She forced a smile, but her mind was racing. How can Ngozi marry before me? No, I will not allow it. She kept quiet that day, watching and waiting. She did not spoil the meeting in front of the visitors. She let them agree on another day when they would return to finalize the marriage rites. Everyone thought Ada had changed. Even Ngozi believed her sister's silence meant she had finally accepted her fate. That night, Ngozi prayed with tears of gratitude. God, thank you. My joy has come. But what she did not know was that Ada was already planning something that would break her heart. The day of Ngozi's marriage rites finally came. From early morning, the compound was filled with life. Women pounded yam, children ran about, and the sound of drums rose in the air. Neighbors gathered to celebrate, for it had been long since joy entered that family. Ngozi was dressed beautifully. Her friends rubbed camwood on her skin until it glowed. Beads were placed around her neck, wrists, and ankles. She wore a wrapper of fine colors, and her head was tied with cloth that made her look like a true bride. The groom's people arrived with gifts. They brought palm wine, goats, yams, and money wrapped in white cloth. Everyone clapped and cheered. The whole compound was ready for celebration. But Ada stood in a corner, her face tight. She had watched her sister being prepared, and jealousy stabbed her like a knife. The thought of her younger sister marrying before her was too much to bear. When it was time for Ngozi to come out and greet the groom's family, Ada moved quickly. She carried a calabash of water, pretending to help. But just as Ngozi stepped forward, Ada poured the water on her from head to toe. Gasps filled the air. The beads slipped off, the camwood washed away, and Ngozi's fine wrapper clung to her body in shame. The crowd was silent, then whispers began. Some women covered their mouths in shock. Others shook their heads, saying, "This is an abomination." Ngozi stood frozen, tears mixing with the water on her face. Amaka rushed to hold her, but it was too late. The groom's family looked at one another, embarrassed. They spoke quietly among themselves, then turned and began to pack their things. The drums stopped. The laughter ended. Slowly, the guests started leaving the compound one by one. Ngozi fell to the ground, weeping bitterly. Her joy had been crushed in a single moment. Amaka knelt beside her, crying too. Ada stood there, breathing heavily, her eyes dark. She did not apologize. She did not comfort her sister. She simply walked away as if nothing had happened. After the ruined wedding, the compound was silent for many days. Ngozi refused to come out of her room. She cried from morning till night. Sometimes her mother sat beside her, begging her to eat. Other times Amaka lay with her on the mat, wiping her tears. But nothing could take away her pain. Her father was deeply troubled. He walked about the compound with his hands behind his back, sighing heavily. One evening, he gathered the family and spoke. "Ada," he said, his voice trembling with anger, "what you did to your sister is a shame. Do you not know you have destroyed her joy? What will people say of this family now?" Ada looked down, but she did not answer. Her mother continued, "Ada, we raised you to love your sisters, not to fight against them. Your jealousy has brought disgrace upon us. Why would you pour water on your sister on her wedding day?" Still, Ada kept quiet. Her lips were pressed tightly together. Ngozi's sobs filled the room. "What have I done to deserve this? Why does my own sister hate me so much?" she cried. Amaka turned to Ada, her eyes red with tears. "Sister, even if you don't want us to marry, must you break our hearts like this? Is there no space for our happiness in this house?" Ada stood up suddenly and walked out of the room. She could not bear their words. But deep inside, she told herself, "I am the first daughter. No one will cross me. Until I marry, none of them will marry." That night, Ngozi prayed again, her voice breaking. "God, if this is how life will be, then take away my tears. Give me strength to endure." The whole compound slept in sorrow. After the broken wedding, Ngozi was never the same. She hardly smiled again. At the stream, where she once chatted with friends, she now walked with her eyes to the ground. At the market, she no longer sang while selling vegetables. The joy that once made her shine had been taken away. The villagers pitied her. Some women whispered, "Ngozi is a good girl. She does not deserve this kind of pain." Others shook their heads and said, "It is her sister, Ada. She has locked her destiny with her own hands." Amaka tried to comfort Ngozi. Every evening, She sat beside her and spoke softly. Sister, don't give up hope. One day, your joy will return. Ada cannot stop what God has planned. But Ngozi only sighed. Her eyes were always full of tears. She avoided gatherings, avoided music, and even avoided looking at herself in the mirror. It was as if the water Ada poured on her had washed away not only her wedding day, but her spirit too. Meanwhile, Ada walked about the compound as if nothing had happened. She fetched water, cooked, and went to the farm. To outsiders she looked calm, but inside her, the jealousy grew stronger. She noticed how people now looked at her with suspicion. She noticed how her parents sighed whenever their eyes met hers. Still, she refused to admit she had done wrong. One night, Amaka confronted her. Sister Ada, why are you doing this to us? You were once our friend, our comfort. Now you are the one breaking us apart. Is marriage the only thing in life? Must you destroy us just to prove you are the eldest? Ada's eyes hardened. Amaka, keep quiet. You are still small. You don't understand. In this family, I will be the first to marry. As long as I am here, none of you will pass me. Her words pierced Amaka's heart. She realized her sister's mind was set like a stone. That night, Amaka cried quietly, not for herself, but for Ngozi, who had become only a shadow of the sister she once knew. After many months of silence in the compound, a small light of hope came again. This time it was for Amaka, the youngest. A kind young teacher from a nearby village had been watching her for some time. He admired her gentle spirit and the way she always helped others at the stream. One evening he came with his family, carrying palm wine and gifts, asking for Amaka's hand in marriage. For the first time in a long while, Amaka's heart beat fast with joy. She was nervous, but she smiled shyly. Even Ngozi managed to lift her eyes, whispering, "Maybe God has remembered us through you." Their parents welcomed the visitors warmly, though their hearts still carried the wounds of what had happened before. Everyone thought Ada would stay quiet this time. She sat at the edge, listening while the visitors spoke. But inside her, anger boiled again. How can Amaka, the last-born, marry while I, the eldest, remain here? When the time came for Amaka to step forward, Ada suddenly rose. Her voice was calm, but her words were sharp. Teacher, you say you want my sister, but do you know her well? Amaka is young. She still behaves like a child. She sings, she plays, she laughs at everything. Do you think she is ready for the responsibility of a wife? The visitors looked at one another. The teacher frowned. Amaka's smile faded. Ada continued. And besides, in our tradition, the eldest should marry first. If you carry the last-born before the first, you may carry misfortune into your house. Her words spread like cold water. The teacher's family became uneasy. They spoke quietly among themselves. After some time, they stood up and said they would return another day to think about it. But they never came back. That night, Amaka sat outside under the moon, her tears flowing. Ngozi sat with her, though her own heart was already broken. She said softly, "Sister, now you understand my pain." Inside the hut, Ada lay awake, staring at the roof. She had once again stopped her sister's joy. Yet instead of peace, her heart felt even heavier. And the villagers began to say, if care is not taken, none of those girls will ever marry, because Ada has tied their destinies with her jealousy. The disappointment from Amaka's broken proposal weighed heavily on the family. Their mother's eyes grew dim with sorrow. Their father's shoulders bent lower each day, not from old age, but from worry. One evening, after the day's work, the parents called all three daughters into the hut. The oil lamp burned dimly, casting shadows on the mud walls. The air was heavy with silence. Their father spoke first. His voice was tired but firm. "Ada, my daughter, you are the eldest. We raised you to protect your sisters, not to fight them. But what you have done to Ngozi and Amaka has brought shame to this house. Do you want your sisters to remain here until they are old? Do you want people to mock us until our graves?" Ada looked down, her face hard. She said nothing. Their mother's voice shook as she added, "My child, marriage is not a competition. Destiny is not the same for everyone. Even if you marry after your sisters, will it remove your name from being the firstborn? Why must you block their joy? Tears rolled down her cheeks as she spoke. She stretched her hands towards Ada. Ada, please, for the sake of this family, allow your sisters to live. Do not tie their futures with your jealousy. Ngozi sat quietly, her head bowed. Amaka sniffed softly beside her, wiping her face with the edge of her wrapper. For a moment, it seemed Ada's heart would soften. Her eyes glistened as if tears wanted to fall. But then, she straightened her back and said coldly, I am the first daughter. No younger one will marry before me. If they try, I will stop it. Her words struck the hut like thunder. Her parents' faces fell. Ngozi closed her eyes as if stabbed again. Amaka let out a small cry. Their father slammed his hand on the wooden stool. Ada, you will destroy this family with your stubbornness. Remember, the eyes of the gods are watching. A child who blocks the path of another may one day be blocked herself. Ada stood up and walked out into the night, leaving her family in tears. That evening, the sound of her footsteps echoed in their hearts like the sound of a door being shut. Time passed, but the pain in the compound only grew deeper. Ngozi, who had once been full of laughter and gentle strength, began to waste away. Her cheeks grew hollow, her eyes lost their brightness, and her steps became weak. Every morning, she sat quietly in front of the hut, staring into the distance. Sometimes she held a calabash of water in her lap without drinking it. Sometimes she spoke to no one for hours. The villagers noticed the change. At the stream, women whispered to each other, See how Ngozi has become thin. This is not ordinary sorrow. Her sister has broken her spirit. Even the young men, who once admired her, now shook their heads sadly. Such beauty, such kindness, now destroyed because of envy inside her own home. Amaka stayed close to her. She fed her when she refused to eat. She held her hand when nightmares woke her in the night. But even Amaka could not stop the slow fading of her sister's light. One evening, Ngozi whispered to her, Amaka, maybe I was not meant to marry. Maybe God allowed Ada to do this because my life was not supposed to follow that path. Amaka's eyes filled with tears. No, sister, don't talk like that. You deserve happiness. You deserve love. Don't let Ada's jealousy make you forget who you are. But inside, Amaka was afraid. She could see her sister slipping away little by little. Their parents were filled with grief. Their mother prayed at night, crying out to God to save her daughter. Their father walked about with sorrow in his eyes, unable to find rest. And Ada, though she saw the suffering of her sister, remained unmoved. She still told herself, until I marry, no one else will. But the villagers had already begun to condemn her openly. They said, Ada is digging a pit for her sisters, but she does not know she is digging it for herself too. In the compound, the air was heavy with despair, and everyone feared what might happen next if Ada's heart did not change. After many moons of sorrow, another suitor appeared. He was a gentle man from a distant town, a craftsman known for carving wood into beautiful works. He came not for Ngozi this time, but for Amaka. When he and his family arrived, they brought mats, palm oil, and carved stools as gifts. The whole village whispered about it. Some people said, maybe this will finally bring joy to that household. Others said, we hope Ada will not destroy this one too. Amaka's heart pounded with both hope and fear. She had seen what Ada did to Ngozi, and she knew her sister would try again. Still, she prayed in her heart, God, let this one not be taken away. The visitors spoke warmly, praising Amaka's character and asking for her hand. Her parents smiled politely, but worry was in their eyes. Everyone waited to see what Ada would do. And as expected, Ada stood up. Her voice was calm, but her words cut deep. Amaka is still too young. Marriage is not for children who play with laughter. If she goes now, she will only bring shame to this family. The visitors shifted uneasily. Murmurs rose among them. Ada continued, also, it is against our way for the last-born to marry before the first. If you ignore this, you may carry a curse into your house. Amaka's hands trembled in her lap. Tears filled her eyes, but this time, something inside her refused to break. She stood up slowly and faced Ada. Sister, why are you doing this? She asked, her voice shaking but strong. What did Ngozi and I ever do to you? Is it a crime to be born after you? Must our lives end because of your pride? The hut fell silent. Even the visitors stared in shock. Never before had Amaka spoken against her elder sister in public. Ada's eyes burned with anger. "Sit down, Amaka," she hissed. "You will not challenge me in front of strangers." But Amaka did not sit. Her tears ran down her cheeks as she said, "One day, sister, the same pain you give us will return to you. You cannot block what God has planned forever." Her words hung heavy in the air. The suitors' family looked uneasy. They whispered among themselves and, as before, decided to leave. Amaka collapsed into tears. The joy that had risen in her heart was crushed again. Ngozi held her, whispering, "You were brave today. At least you spoke the truth." But in Ada's eyes, the anger only grew darker. And the whole village began to say, "The youngest has found her voice." A storm is coming in that family. After Amaka's bold words, the whole village began to speak more openly. What people once whispered at the stream, they now said aloud in the marketplace. "Ada is the reason her sisters are still at home," the women said as they sold cassava. "She is destroying their futures," the men added as they drank palm wine under the trees. Children even sang songs in the evening mocking her. elder sister," blocking the road for the young ones. "If you close the door of joy, the door will close on you too." Whenever Ada walked past, she felt the eyes of the village upon her. Some shook their heads in pity, others in anger. Mothers warned their daughters, "Do not become like Ada. Jealousy is poison." At home, things were worse. Their father could hardly look at her. Their mother no longer spoke softly, but only sighed in sorrow. Ngozi grew weaker, while Amaka's spirit hardened with quiet anger. One night, Amaka said to Ada, "Sister, do you not hear what people are saying about you? Do you not see how our family is drowning in shame?" Ada snapped back, "Let them talk. Am I the first daughter to remain unmarried? I will not bow down to my younger ones. Until I marry, no one else will step out." Her voice was firm, but her heart was restless. Alone at night, she sometimes lay awake, staring at the roof, wondering if she had gone too far. But each time, pride tightened its grip on her. Instead of softening, Ada became harsher. She spoke less to her sisters, and when she did, her words carried bitterness. Even small laughter between Ngozi and Amaka annoyed her. And so the compound grew colder. Love no longer lived there. Only suspicion, silence, and sorrow filled the air. But the gods were watching, and the day was coming when Ada's own destiny would face the weight of her deeds. The months rolled by, and hope grew dim in the compound. But one morning, a surprising message came. A wealthy farmer from the next village had set his eyes on Amaka. He sent word that he wished to marry her quickly, before the next planting season. Their parents were both relieved and afraid. Could joy finally return to their home? Or would Ada strike again? The farmer's family fixed a day for the wedding. Preparations began quietly. The women of the family gathered palm oil, yams, and wrappers. Amaka's friends came to help her with songs and laughter. For the first time in a long while, Amaka's face carried a glow. But Ada was watching. The night before the wedding, Ada sat alone in her room, her heart burning. She told herself, "If Amaka marries tomorrow, people will laugh at me forever. They will say the last-born has left before the first. I cannot allow it." Early in the morning, before the sun rose, Ada crept to where Amaka was being prepared. She carried a calabash filled with cold water drawn in the dead of night. Amaka was seated quietly, her friends plaiting her hair and rubbing her body with oil. Suddenly Ada stepped in. Before anyone could stop her, she poured the whole calabash of water over Amaka's body. The women gasped. Amaka screamed as the oil and powder washed away, her fine clothes soaked and stained. Ada's voice was sharp. "This wedding will not happen. Not while I am still in this house." The compound erupted in cries. Her mother fell to her knees, begging, "Ada, why? Why do you want to destroy us completely?" But Ada's face was hard. She turned and walked out, leaving Amaka shivering, her heart broken. Word spread quickly through the village. People gathered outside, murmuring in anger. "She has done it again. This is no longer ordinary jealousy. Something darker lives in her heart." Amaka sat in tears, her wedding day shattered. Ngozi, weak as she was, crawled to her side and held her, whispering, "Sister, do not let her win. Even if today is ruined, your joy will not die forever." But Ada did not hear. She locked herself in her room, convinced she had saved her pride. What she did not know was that this act would be the very rope that tied her destiny in chains. The morning after Ada ruined Amaka's wedding, the village square filled with angry voices. Men, women, and youths gathered, their faces hard. The shame had become too heavy for anyone to ignore. The elders sent for Ada, her parents, and her sisters. When they arrived, the crowd pressed close, their murmurs sharp like thorns. Ada stood with her head high, but her heart beat fast. The eldest of the council, an old man with a staff, struck the ground 3 times. The square went silent. His voice was deep, cutting through the air. "Ada, daughter of Obioma, you have brought disgrace to your father's house. Once his mistake, twice his wickedness, but thrice his evil. You have poured water on your sister's day of joy. Do you think you can block the river of destiny with your hands?" The crowd shouted, "No." Another elder stood. His eyes were stern. "You are the first daughter. You should be a shield to your sisters, but instead you became their enemy. You carry jealousy like fire, burning your own blood. Such a heart cannot be allowed to destroy this family further." Ada opened her mouth to speak, but the elder raised his hand. "Silence! The time for your excuses has passed. Today we give judgment." He turned to the people. "From this day, Ada will no longer decide the path of her sisters. Any man who wishes to marry Ngozi or Amaka will go through this council, not through her. If Ada interferes again, let the gods themselves deal with her." The people roared in agreement. Some clapped their hands, others hissed at Ada. Mothers pointed at her and warned their daughters, "Do not grow into this kind of bitterness." Ada's father stood with tears in his eyes. "Elders, may your words stand. This child has torn my heart, but I hand her over to your wisdom." Her mother wept openly, holding Ngozi and Amaka close. Ada's face flushed with shame. For the first time, she felt the weight of the entire village pressing down on her. She wanted to shout, to argue, but the voices of the people drowned her. "Wicked sister," they cried. "Jealous heart. Her own curse will find her." Ada turned her face away, but deep inside, anger and shame wrestled like wild animals. That night, the village slept, but Ada did not. The judgment of the elders echoed in her ears, and for the first time, fear began to creep into her heart. After the judgment of the elders, the village moved on, but Ada could not escape the weight of shame. Wherever she went, whispers followed her. Women turned their backs when she approached the stream. Men no longer greeted her warmly. Even children mocked her songs. At first, Ada told herself she was strong enough to endure it. "Let them talk. I am still the eldest, my time will come," she said in her heart. But fate had already begun its work. Suitors stopped coming. In the past, men had overlooked her pride because of her beauty. But now, her name carried a shadow. No man wanted to join himself to a woman known for destroying her own blood. When matchmakers mentioned her, families shook their heads. "That one? Leave her. She will bring trouble into any house she enters." Her friends drifted away too. One by one, they stopped visiting her hut. At weddings and festivals, they avoided sitting near her. Ada began to walk alone, her wrapper tied carelessly, her once bright face now hardened by bitterness. At home, the gap between her and her sisters widened. Ngozi had grown too weak to work, but her spirit remained gentle. Amaka grew stronger in courage, her eyes sharper, her voice no longer afraid. The love between them deepened, while Ada remained outside that circle, eating alone, sitting alone. And then the sickness came. It started as small fevers at night, sweats that soaked her wrapper. She dismissed it at first, but soon her body grew weak. Her hands trembled as she tried to fetch water. Her legs shook when she walked long distances. People whispered again, "This is not ordinary sickness. The gods have begun their judgment." She poured water on her sister's joy. Now her own strength is draining away like water. Ada heard these words, and they pierced her heart. But pride would not allow her to confess or repent. She clenched her teeth and endured the pain, telling herself it would pass. But it did not pass. It grew worse. And with each passing day, she began to understand the elder's warning. The same door of joy she closed for her sisters was now being closed tightly against her. Ada's sickness grew worse with each moon. The fevers came like fire in the night. Her body became thin, her once beautiful skin pale and dry. She could no longer lift a calabash, no longer braid her own hair. The village women who once envied her beauty now shook their heads. See Ada, the proud one. She fought her sisters, but now she fights for breath. Her mother wept day and night. She begged the healers, she prayed at the shrine, she called on God in the dark hours of morning. But no remedy brought relief. The more herbs they gave Ada, the weaker she became. At last, Ada called for her sisters. Her voice was faint, her eyes hollow. Ngozi, Amaka, she whispered. They came to her bedside. Ngozi, though weak herself, sat beside her. Amaka stood with folded arms, tears in her eyes. Ada's lips trembled. Forgive me. I was blind. I thought if I stopped your joy, mine would come first. But now I see, I was only digging my own grave. Her words broke into coughs. Tears streamed down her face. Ngozi, Amaka, do not let my bitterness destroy your future. Please, please forgive me. Ngozi wept softly and held her hand. Sister, I forgive you. May your heart find peace. Amaka's eyes filled with both pain and anger. She wanted to shout, to ask why Ada had destroyed their lives. But seeing her sister so broken, she only whispered, May God have mercy on you. That night, the house was silent except for the sound of Ada's labored breathing. Her parents sat beside her praying. Her sisters lay awake, their hearts heavy. And then as the cock crowed before dawn, Ada's chest rose one last time. She let out a long breath, and her body grew still. The first daughter, who once vowed that no sister would marry before her, lay lifeless, her pride buried with her. When the news spread, the village said, Death has carried the jealous one. The path she blocked is now free. May her soul find the peace she refused her sisters. The morning Ada died, the compound was filled with wailing. Her mother tore her wrapper in grief, crying out, my daughter, why did you let pride swallow you? Her father sat on the ground in silence, his face hard like stone. The villagers gathered quickly. Some came out of respect for the family, others out of curiosity. But everywhere the talk was the same. Ada was beautiful, but her heart destroyed her. They prepared her body, wrapping her in white cloth. Women sang dirges, their voices heavy with sorrow and warning. The elders of the village stood by her grave, speaking words that cut deep. Let every ear hear this. A child who blocks her sister's path has now been blocked by the earth itself. Let the living learn from her story. When they lowered Ada into the ground, her mother's cries shook the air. Ngozi and Amaka wept silently, their hearts torn. But beneath their tears was also a strange kind of release, as though a heavy chain had finally been broken. After the burial, people sat in small groups, shaking their heads. This is a lesson for every family, they said. Jealousy is like a knife, it cuts the hand of the one who holds it. That evening, silence fell over the compound. The absence of Ada's presence was sharp, almost unreal. Her room stood empty, her voice gone forever. But in the hearts of her sisters, something began to stir, not joy yet, but the first small hope that life might one day breathe again. After Ada's burial, sorrow still lingered in the compound, but slowly, like clouds clearing after a storm, a new light began to shine. Not long after, word spread that the wealthy farmer who had once sought Amaka's hand had returned. This time he came boldly, with his family carrying yams, goats, palm wine, and fine wrappers. He stood before the elders and said, I will not be turned away again. Amaka is the one I choose. The elders nodded. The path is clear now. Let no hand rise against her joy. Amaka's wedding was full of song and dancing. Women clapped their hands, children sang in the village square, and her mother's face glowed with pride. As Amaka walked to her husband's home, she looked back once at her father's compound, her eyes filled with tears. But this time, they were tears of peace. Soon after, a gentle man, a healer from a nearby town, asked for Ngozi's hand. Though her body was still weak from sorrow, his kindness gave her strength. He told her, "Your days of tears are over. With me, you will find rest." Her parents agreed joyfully, and once again, the compound was alive with celebration. Ngozi, who had almost faded away, was dressed in bright cloth, her beauty shining again. The villagers said, "At last, her heart has been lifted." With both daughters settled, the family's grief softened. Their mother danced with the women, her laughter returning after many dark years. Their father poured palm wine for the elders, saying, "My house was once heavy with sorrow, but today it is light again." And as for Ada, her name became a lesson in every home. Parents warned their children, "Do not let envy destroy you. Do not fight the joy of your own blood. Jealousy buries the one who carries it." But for Ngozi and Amaka, life moved forward. They lived in their new homes with peace, their hearts no longer bound by their sister's shadow. The story of their suffering and survival spread through the land, told again and again by firesides, a reminder that in every family, love must rise above rivalry. And so, though the elder sister's pride ended in the grave, the younger sisters walked into their dawn with laughter, joy, and the blessing of peace.